All right, I kind of lied to you. In the last video, I said we're going to move to the next slide. But before we do, I want to go back. I want you to go back one slide and look at that picture. And now I want you to concentrate on those purple Barneys, the proteins, right? I want you to concentrate on those purple things, and you'll see towards the front, in the sort of the middle, lower middle portion of that photograph, you'll see there is a purple protein that is clearly going from the inside of the cell to the outside of the cell. It extends all the way through there. And then if you look to its right, to the right side of that phospholipid bilayer, you can see one that doesn't. All right, we're gonna categorize the proteins that are found in cell membranes as either being integral, one that goes all the way through there, or peripheral, only on the outside. So when we talk about the integral, I just went to the next slide. When we talk about those integral proteins, we have three different ones we're going to talk about. So we said that it's pretty darn hard for anything to get in or out of the cell, and that you can't have that because stuff is constantly needing to move. So we have some mechanisms for getting materials in or out of the cell. And one of the ways is to rely on a passive process called diffusion. And basically that means that any chemical that is in high concentration in one location is going to spread on its own without you doing anything. It's going to spread out and become equally distributed because molecules vibrate and the molecules bump into each other and they spread out. Now, if you got a tunnel, a pathway from one side to the other, they'll spread out through that pathway. And that is going to be something we will call facilitated diffusion. We'll learn about that later. The very first integral protein we're going to talk about is a channel protein. And you can think of it like a straw. But it's not just a straw you could drink anything through. It only allows one kind of chemical to go through. And if we were just talking about water, and so we'll continue talking about water, and there's something called an aquaporin. It is a type of protein channel that allows water to flow either in or out of the cell. And the water does this without the cell making it do it. It's just like it's a tube that allows it to move in or out. So materials, some materials enter and leave the cell through specific channel proteins. Now I say specific because those channels only allow their thing to come through. Later on, next semester, we will talk about nerve cells, and we'll talk about how you have leakage channels for sodium ions, and we have leakage channels for potassium ions. It's the same thing as this aquaporin, this water channel. These channels allow either sodium to go in or out, or potassium to go in or out, and it's driven based on the concentration on either side of the membrane. Now, sometimes you've got a lot of stuff on one side or on the inside, but you want more. And diffusion, we said, moves stuff from the high concentration towards the lower. So if you have a lot of sugar inside the cell, but you want more, what do? You reach out, you grab it, and you pull it in. That is a transporter protein. Transporter proteins, it's not just sugar. There's a lot of things that are transported. We'll talk about the sodium-potassium pump. It's constantly using energy to pump sodium out and pull potassium in. We have transporter proteins for glucose as well. So there's this other kind of integral proteins that extend all the way through, that will reach out and grab something and pull it in. And that uses energy, cellular energy. The cell has to expend energy in order to make that happen. All right, the third kind of integral protein has nothing to do with moving something in or out. What it has to do with is responding to signals that come from the outside. So we have some receptor proteins, and the best way to describe it is to talk about hormones and their receptor. When we talk about hormones, what happens to the cell? When a cell is responding to a hormone, what it's going to do is it's going to change its physiology. So what happens? We have this protein on the outside, and when the hormone attaches there, it changes the shape of the protein on the inside. The hormone's still on the outside, and this then functions as an enzyme on the inside of the cell. What do enzymes do? They catalyze chemical reactions. They change the chemistry in the cell. So that is an integral protein. It extends all the way through that cell membrane, but when the chemical attaches on the outside, it changes the inside. The chemical's still on the outside, but the inside of the integral protein, the receptor protein, it changes shape, and it results in a change in physiology. So those are the three kinds of integral proteins. I'm going to stop and start again to talk about the ones on the outside only. Those are peripheral, or no, I'm going to keep going. What the heck? So this will be about a 10-minute video. Who cares? It takes a little longer to upload. All right, so on the outside only, we have a certain kind of tissue that's called a connective tissue. And again, this is just an example. This is not the only place where we're going to see this, but there's a connective tissue, and what they are is cells in a matrix, in a substance that they create. Connective tissues are all that way. Bone tissue. Where does all that hard stuff come from? The bone cells have enzymes on their surface that make that hydroxyapatite, that hard bony matrix. So some of the proteins on the outside act as enzymes to change their world. Now, bacteria do this as well. So inside of, and this is why I say it's not just connective tissue, something like tuberculosis. You may know it's hard to catch and it's really hard to treat. The reason it's hard to treat is it secretes this material around it. No, it creates this material around it using enzymes that makes it hard for the medicine to get in there and kill it. It's a capsule. So it produces this stuff. So there's a lot of situations where we have enzymes on a protein that it doesn't extend all the way through. It's a peripheral protein. Now the final installment here, the final thing I'm going to talk about has to do with recognition proteins. When we talk about immunity and we say we've got these white blood cells that are going out after stuff, what's going to happen is it's going out there after stuff, but it needs to know who to attack. And so we have recognition proteins on the surface of your cells that say, hey, I'm me. Don't mess with me. I am you. There's a little label that sticks out there that says, I am self. And if you've got the wrong label sticking out there, they'll kill you. And so that's what they do. That is another peripheral protein. All right, that's it for now.